is about the law and people. That is not a legal defense, let me tell you. And how people can resolve and better themselves.
Justice with passion.
I knew I was going to go into law because I always defended everybody. I was always the one who found a solution and tried to resolve the problem by having people talk to each other.
Justice with truth.
So I'm giving you one more chance to tell me the truth.
This is Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. Deborah Benedict is suing Tammy Porter in the amount of $1,452. Ms. Benedict claims Ms. Porter sabotaged her finals by pressing snooze on her alarm clock. Ms. Porter claims she hits the snooze button on the plaintiff's alarm clock every morning.
All parties have been sworn in, Your Honor.
Thank you, Renard. Renard, this is the case. This is the case where I had nightmares.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
When you graduate from college and you think your alarm doesn't go off and you have a final and your alarm doesn't go off and you miss your final, that's what happened to her. Why are you suing her for that?
I'm suing her on the grounds that I believe that she is responsible for me failing my class. She had snoozed my alarm the day of my final, which was the most important final of my college career.
Mm-hmm. And then, so what happened on this day? Because basically you are suing her for basically the amount of your class because you failed the class.
Yes, nothing more, nothing less.
Okay, so this final, you weren't doing well in this class?
I wasn't doing very well throughout the class, but my darling roommate had actually noticed that I was not doing very well and had offered up the assistance of her best friend, Stacy.
She wasn't a bad roommate if she got you a connection for a good friend.
This was pretty much the only time that she has done anything like this. I thought that this was like, the olive branch, if you will, that she was trying to actually make an effort to be my friend. I don't think that.
So then what happened? So you are studying for your final.
I was studying for my final very, very diligently throughout the night because I knew that at that moment that I was going to pass.
So were you cramming or you over preparing?
I was over preparing.
Okay,
definitely.
All right. So why don't you give me your side of the story, Ms. Porter? Tell me what happened until that point.
Okay, so Deborah and I were roommates for 6 months, and when we were first assigned roommates, I tried to talk to her and get to know her, and I remember walking in the first day, introducing myself. She was already on her bed just reading, studying, and didn't want to be bothered by me. She does have a really heavy workload, and I respect that. I'm a fashion major, and I understand how hard chem can be because my best friend took chem and she struggled with it. She passed, but there was times where she struggled.
And that's the tutor. That's why did you go out of your way to have your friend tutor her?
Well, because she was stressing out and like she was cramming. She would be up really late studying and freaking out.
So Miss Benedict, did you hear your alarm?
I didn't hear my alarm at all.
And when did you wake up?
It had to have been at least 8:30, and my class started at 8.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And if you could see by this evidence right over here.
Renard, can you grab her evidence, please?
Thank you.
What is this evidence?
My final exam is worth 50% of my total grade, and the second part of that highlighted part is missing a test is an automatic 0, no exceptions. Sleeping in was not an exception to him, no matter how many times I tried to tell him what I thought had gone wrong.
So if you woke up at 8:30, class started at 8, how long was your exam?
Well, the class itself was an hour long, but the test itself was a half an hour long. And by the time that I got there, all of the students were already filing out. I knew I had messed up.
Didn't you have any time to take the test? Like if you...
I didn't. He refused because I was late, and that's part of the policy.
Okay. And have you ever overslept before?
Never.
Has this ever happened to you?
I have never, ever once missed a test in my entire life. And then all of a sudden, a day when apparently my ex-roommate had snoozed my alarm, all of a sudden, I'm late for something.
Coming up on Justice for All.
And it took 2 of our suite mates to pull her off of me.
Now, mind you, Your Honor, I never actually caused any physical harm.
Touched your phone.
And later.
If it had been a...
Your Honor, he doesn't understand how serious this was. This is my engagement party. I was basically getting introduced to my new family, and he ruined that. Because they can't trust me, because they can't trust the food that we provide to them.
Closed captioning provided by... You're watching Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. Justice for All is back with the case of Deborah Benedict, who is suing Tammy Porter for $1,452.
May I present some evidence too, please?
Sure.
So Deborah's bunk is the top one. Mine is the bottom.
Okay.
And we kept our cell phones and our chargers and alarm clocks on the nightstand. Her alarm clock was set for that instance, her exam at 6:30. And it went off. I let it go off for about 15 minutes before hitting the snooze. Before I hit the snooze, I called out to her, and I took my hands and I pushed up the mattress on her bed to try to nudge her awake.
Why would it be your responsibility to wake her up?
It isn't my responsibility, but I was trying to be a good roommate because I know she has a heavy...
Did you ever complain to her about having the alarm clock on the bottom of the bunk and not on the top?
Yes, and she says it's because she doesn't want to get cancer in her brain from the radioactivity.
Your Honor, I
and
am
you know
a
what? I'm totally
biochemistry major.
fine. I was fine with the arrangement of the cell phone and alarm clock on the nightstand. It didn't bother me.
And if you are here on this very top bunk and there's no alarm clock around you, how are you being responsible for yourself?
Usually every day I am able to wake up to either the alarm or her
But this
waking
wasn't
me up.
just any other day, and she has no responsibility to wake you up. That's
She
not
had
her
known
job.
about
Her job
this.
is just to be your roommate.
It was
So
kind of a
why did you
symbiotic
not take
relationship.
special precautions to wake you up?
It was kind of a symbiotic relationship because it was something that we had discussed prior. She had purposefully snoozed my alarm, maybe a good minute and a half in there because I know she doesn't let it run for that long.
And you didn't even hear your snooze?
No, I didn't.
Whose fault is that?
Hers? I don't know because usually I hear it.
On this day where you know you have to
I
take the
know.
most important final of your college
I was
career.
so tired.
You don't sit up two... That's life.
She had snoozed my phone. She had touched my property without asking me first.
Oh my God, you just said you had a symbiotic relationship, that you let her do that. That is something a child who's 4 years old basically tells a parent. That is not what a grown woman tells a judge when they're suing their roommate because I failed my final. Because it's, you know, your excuse is even worse than my dog ate my homework. Ms. Porter, you are countersuing her for $160.15?
I am. After that day of the exam, she came back to our dorm room, and she was like a complete wreck. And I look at her, and I'm like, why are you so upset? I should be the one upset because I didn't get any sleep because I had to keep snoozing and trying to wake you up. And she realized that I said snoozing and put 2 and 2 together that I had turned her to snooze her alarm clock, and she attacked me. And I was preparing for my final. For my class, I had to prepare an evening gown. So I was wearing it and getting ready to present it to my class. When she attacked me, she ripped my dress, and it took 2 of our suite mates to pull her off of me.
Now, mind you, Your Honor, I never actually caused any physical
I
harm
touched
to
your
her.
phone, but you attacked me.
Nobody else failed your class but you. You cannot point the finger at somebody because you're the only one who failed the test. Nobody else. It is not your college roommate's responsibility to wake you up and be your alarm clock at all. And then the actions of attacking your roommate and ripping her dress, that's how you handle it? So based on the evidence, I will deny your claim, and I will grant the defendant's counterclaim for $160.15 because what you did was not react, not be mad. You actually intentionally destroyed her property. That's what you did. So based on the evidence, as I said, I will deny your claim, and I will grant the defendant's counterclaim for $160.15.
All rise.
Judge Perez has ruled in favor of the defendant. The plaintiff has been ordered to pay $160.
I'm happy I can prove to my professor that I wasn't lying.
Well, great for you. Now I have to figure out how I'm going to pay for this class.
And
would you have
later,
reacted the same way? How am I going to eat something if I think I'm allergic to peanut, but now I think peanuts, now I think all of the pieces of meat or pork have peanuts on them. I can't eat any of them.
I would have reacted the same.
I mean, I can't say, oh, I think that piece doesn't look like it doesn't have any, or that piece doesn't look like it doesn't have any wine.
Closed captioning provided by... You're watching Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. Alex Henderson is suing Kareem Zaburi in the amount of $2,000. Mr. Zaburi claims Mr. Henderson contaminated his food with pork oil. Mr. Henderson claims he didn't intentionally try to contaminate the plaintiff's food.
Mr. Henderson, I understand you are a cook.
I own a catering business, man.
Catering business, okay. And tell me about your catering business.
Well, I've been in business for 10 years, but overall I've been doing catering for 15 years.
And I understand that Mr. Sabori is a former client, and you are suing him because he failed to pay a contract?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, why don't you give me the details of that?
Well, me and Sabori, I've known Sabori for 10 years. He's a good friend, and I've done events for him in the past.
What kind of events has he done for you in the past?
He has done some work for me with my son's wedding. We had a couple of parties at the house. He's done that. The main thing, Your Honor, is that I am a Muslim. And he knows this. He's been knowing this, as he said, for 10 years. So part of the issue is that he needs to, or he has in the past, comply with our dietary restrictions.
So then what happened? So what went wrong in this situation? If you've worked with each other with the past, you've had success, you've been satisfied with his catering?
Very satisfied, Your Honor.
Okay.
This time, the biggest event that I hired Mr. Henderson for was my daughter's engagement party. We had 400 guests.
Wow, it's a big party.
We had a menu. We went over the menu. Part of the menu had to deal with the Islamic faith. No pork for us, but we did have pork available for some of our other guests. I have
a menu?
A menu, Your Honor.
Could I give Renard all your evidence, please, Mr. Savoy? So
That's
very
it.
specifically here, so I'm looking at the engagement celebration. You had appetizers, the salad, the entree. So you had calamari, some stuffed vegetables, salads, entrees, and dessert. And the entree specifically, you had steak, kind of like a pizza and a pasta, and a pork tenderloin. But how are you able, and forgive my ignorance, I mean, I can imagine me doing it at home, but on a big scale, how do you separate that? How do you separate the fact that there's certain things that some guests can have and some guests cannot have?
He'll give me a list of who can eat what, who's allergic to what, who's able to eat what, so that way I can be able to specify what to make and who to make it for and how to make it.
Okay, now was this going to be a buffet style, or were you serving the food?
This was buffet style.
Oh, okay. So then
Okay.
it wasn't an issue of serving people.
No, there was no issue of serving.
It was
Your
just
Honor.
so people knew beef's here, pork's here, pizza, et cetera, et cetera, et
All of
cetera.
my family and our friends, we knew we couldn't eat the pork. It was to be labeled. The problem is, in this case, so I had some of my future in-laws go back to the kitchen because he's my friend to meet the cook. My son-in-law, future son-in-law, saw his chef cross-contaminating the pork dish with the beef.
How did he cross-contaminate that?
Well, he prepared the steak in the same pan that he prepared the pork with the Chardonnay wine sauce in. That's totally unacceptable.
I see what you
So
mean.
by the time I could try to find Mr. Henderson, the damage had been done.
They would be upset? I mean,
Yeah,
if
I mean,
it's
this is a very serious thing, Your Honor.
and then
I mean,
who said anything about it? You said something to the guests, or?
No, my son-in-law.
You know, this was an accident. It was not intentional, at least on the part of Mr. Henderson. I mean, mistakes happen, and we all understand.
Mistakes happen, which is
So
why I
then you-
paid him $4,000.
No, I understand. So
instead of $6,000.
do you bring it up to his attention and say, hey, listen, this is what happened? As you can imagine, Mr. Henderson.
Oh, when I did later.
We can't eat the pork. I mean, we can't eat the beef.
When
now.
I did later, after everything, he laughed it off as if it was no big deal. He said, oh, it's no big deal. It just happened one time. You know, no big deal. And it was a big deal because he knows about this. You know, my daughter's wedding, my daughter's dinner was ruined because of this.
First of all, I didn't laugh it off.
If it had been a...
Your Honor, he doesn't understand how serious this was. This is my engagement party. I was basically getting introduced to my new family, and he ruined that.
Coming up,
Steaks and refixing organizing
Yeah, but this
supplies
is a
and stuff like that.
fundamental, inherent mistake. When that part of the agreement was breached, what did you say?
Well, I addressed it to the cook who made that mistake, and I fired him.
Closed captioning provided by. You're watching Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. Justice for All is back with the case of Alex Henderson, who is suing Kareem Sapuri for $2,000.
Now, Mr. Henderson, when Mr. Sabori explained to you what had happened, what was your reaction, and what did you offer as a solution, if there was a possible solution?
Well, as he said, he claims I laughed it off. I didn't laugh it off. I just had too much in my hand to really react to what he was saying. I was busy, you know, observing and fixing mistakes and refixing, organizing
yeah, but this
supplies
is a
and stuff like that.
fundamental, inherent mistake. When that part of the agreement was breached, what did you say?
Well, I addressed it to the cook who made that mistake, and I fired him.
Now, if you put yourself in Mr. Savori's shoes, would you have reacted the same way? How am I going to eat something if I think I'm allergic to peanuts, now I think all of the pieces of meat or pork have peanuts on them. I can't eat any of them.
I would have reacted the same.
I mean, I can't say, oh, I think that piece doesn't look like it doesn't have any, or that piece doesn't look like it doesn't have any wine. I mean, I couldn't.
Well, I tried to make it up to him, but he just kept ranting off about how he's not paying me the rest of the money.
Okay. Did you let him try to fix it for you? Did you let him say, don't worry, you know, chefs and cooks, they'll try to do something? Did you offer him anyway?
We didn't have any conversation like that because at the time, everything happened so quickly. There was no time to come up with another dish or what have you. By that time, Your Honor, a lot of the guests, as I said, had left. My daughter was in tears.
And of course, he couldn't find
I didn't know
me
what else to do. So what I did do was, instead of paying him the full $6,000, I paid him $4,000.
Okay, that's reasonable.
I thought that was reasonable.
Judge Perez's verdict when Justice for All returns. Promotional consideration provided by.
You know, your customer's always right. And in a situation like this, I can't see any other solution to saying that your customer's right. You two entered into a very specific agreement. Sure, it was a catering agreement, but it was a very specific agreement.
Yes.
No different than an allergy. No different than if you are contracted to cook and to cater for 100 kids who are allergic to the same thing. You agreed to provide a catering service that very specifically said you would separate two dishes because of their faith. But you did not do that, therefore you breached your duties.
But he also agreed on the payment he was supposed to pay me no matter what.
He agreed on the payment that you would cook, and you promised to separate and to keep things separate, which you did not. So therefore you breached your obligation to him. It's a contract. It's just very simple. You didn't do what you're supposed to do. End of story. That's it. So he deducted $2,000 out of a $6,000 bill. Based on the evidence, I will deny the plaintiff's claim.
All rise.
Judge Perez has ruled in favor of the defendant. The plaintiff's claim has been dismissed.
I learned my lesson. Next time I'll make sure my chef's better prepared.
Well, I'm happy the judge recognized that this was a violation of our religious beliefs.
This has been a production of Entertainment Studios.